On a Wednesday morning in Minneapolis, an ICE agent shoots and kills a woman in her car. And in the hours that followed, it was like two completely different realities just emerged. You had the federal government calling it self-defense against domestic terrorism, no less, and then you had local leaders calling it a reckless killing. So what on earth really happened? Let's get into the facts, the conflicting stories, and the search for some real answers. So, before all the finger-pointing and the political spin began, there's this one hard fact. This is the single event that set an entire city on edge and kicked off a national firestorm. To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to break it down piece by piece. First, we'll look at the fatal encounter itself. Then, we'll dive into the two completely conflicting stories that came out. After that, we'll see how the city reacted, get some context on the huge federal operation that brought the agent there, and finally, we'll see where the investigation is right now. All right, first things first. Let's just establish what we actually know for sure about the encounter itself. The woman who was killed was Renee Nicole Good. She was 37 years old, a Minneapolis resident, and she was shot in her car by an agent from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, who was in the city for a big federal operation. And this is where the whole story just splits right down the middle. Almost immediately after the shooting, we got two completely opposite versions of what happened, and they came from the very highest levels of government. So it all boils down to this one question, right? What happened in those critical seconds? Was this a federal agent who was genuinely defending his own life? Or was this a reckless, totally unnecessary use of deadly force? You couldn't ask for two more different stories. On one side, you've got the federal government saying the agent fired in self-defense because Renee Good was basically using her car as a weapon. But on the other side, you have local leaders in Minneapolis saying, no way. They say the agent acted recklessly, and this is key, that the video just doesn't support the Fed's story. And just listen to the words being used here. This is from the head of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. She didn't just say self-defense. She immediately called it an act of domestic terrorism. I mean, that is some incredibly strong and deliberate language, and it instantly justifies using lethal force. But then you have the mayor of Minneapolis, Frey, who says he saw a video of what happened, and he comes to the exact opposite conclusion. He calls it an agent recklessly using power that got somebody killed. For him, it's not self-defense. It's a flat-out abuse of authority. So let's dig into the federal narrative for a second. They're painting this picture of total chaos. They claim Ms. Good was with a group of rioters, that she was obstructing their operation, and then she took it to the next level by weaponizing her vehicle and actually hitting the agent with it. In their version, the agent only fired defensive shots because he literally feared for his life. Now, compare that to the local story, which is a whole different world. Local officials are saying this was preventable and unnecessary. They make a point to say that Renee Good wasn't a rioter or a target. She was a U.S. citizen, just an observer who was there watching out for our immigrant neighbors. In their version, she was just blocking the road and was trying to drive away when the agent came up to her and fired. And this clash of stories wasn't just happening in press conferences. It absolutely ignited a fire on the streets of Minneapolis. Protests erupted almost instantly, and they were met with a very heavy police response. To really get the tension here, you have to understand the geography. This shooting happened less than a mile from the corner where George Floyd was killed back in 2020. For people in this city, that's not just some location, it's a very fresh wound. So the response, it was immediate. And the situation on the ground got really tense really fast. It started with protesters showing up, some throwing snowballs. Then came the police response, crowd control, pepper spray, tear gas. It just kept building until the governor had to take the pretty serious step of putting the National Guard on standby, getting them ready to deploy if needed. So, caught right in the middle of all this, you've got Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz trying to walk this incredibly fine line. He's validating the anger people are feeling, even calling the desire to protest a patriotic duty, but at the same time, he's begging people to keep things safe and peaceful. Okay, so to understand why this ICE agent was even there, we kind of have to zoom out. Because this shooting didn't just happen in a vacuum. It happened right in the middle of a massive federal law enforcement operation that was already going on all over the city. 2
1,000. Just let that number sink in for a minute. That's how big of a federal law enforcement presence we're talking about, all concentrated in one American city.
So what is that number? Well, that's the estimated number of agents from both ICE and Homeland Security investigations, or HSI, that were sent to the Twin Cities. Their official mission was immigration enforcement and fraud investigations, specifically looking into allegations against Somali-run childcare centers in the area.
So you've got these two completely different stories. A city on edge. The focus now has to shift to the official investigation and the search for what actually happened.
And this isn't just some internal thing. You've got multiple agencies all over this. At the state level, Minnesota's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the BCA, is taking the lead. The FBI is involved on the federal side. And now even Washington is getting in on it, with the U.S. House Oversight Committee launching its own inquiry. But at the same time, you've got officials trying to pump the brakes, telling everyone to be patient. The state's public safety commissioner basically warned that this investigation is brand new, and anyone out there claiming they know for sure what happened is just guessing. And the pressure for real answers is definitely building in Washington. A motion has already been put on the table in a House committee to formally subpoena the Department of Homeland Security. They're demanding every document and every piece of video footage related to the shooting of Renee Good. So this is where we're left. When the mayor of a city is saying reckless killing and the federal government is saying justified self-defense, how are any of us supposed to find the truth? As all these investigations move forward, the big question isn't just about what happened in that car. It's about what justice and accountability are even going to look like in a case like this.